What's up, you guys? It's Chris Ivan back at it, here with another video for you guys. I'm going to be talking to you about the time that I dated a covert, passive-aggressive narcissist. Now, in this video, we're going to be going through all of that whole experience, and I'm going to be excited to be sharing this with you because for the continuing remaining time going forward in this channel, I am going to be doing my best to be sharing more videos with you guys. I want to publish at least one video a day, which means I'm gonna have to get a lot better at talking and just pumping these out without having to do so much editing, because editing is what really takes a long time. So make sure you hit subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future. So talking about the time that I dated a covert passive-aggressive narcissist. Now, this is a really important subject because I didn't even know what was going on, and essentially what happened was I got into a relationship with this girl, and I seriously just fell in love with this girl, and she was totally awesome. And the more time that I spent with this girl, I started thinking, like, this is the girl for me. I am like gonna marry this girl. This is absolutely incredible. Then the more time that kept going on, issues started popping up in the relationship that started seeming like red flags here or there that I knew wasn't normal behavior, but for some reason it was always explained away, and there was always a possible excuse or something going on that made it so that I could believe her rather than believe my own self and my own intuition going forward in this relationship. What ended up happening is that I ended up believing this girl more and more over time, even as more red flags kept popping up throughout the relationship. And throughout the process of going through this experience, I noticed that my self-esteem kept dropping over and over and over continuously, and it was very subtle, and I wasn't able to link it to the relationship. I thought it was something to do with me. I thought it was maybe I wasn't exercising enough, I wasn't doing enough cardio. I thought maybe there was something wrong with my career, something wrong with my other life choices, and where I was headed with everything else in my life besides the relationship, because I was almost convinced that this relationship was absolutely perfect the way that it was. And the reality of the situation is that that relationship wasn't perfect at all. And I didn't realize that I was actually just being duped. I was just being played, and I was being convinced to believe that this person that I was dating was someone else rather than who I thought they were. And the reason that I was able to come across to this realization is because one day I was talking to one of my friends. I was talking to one of my friends, Flyer V, and she was telling me about the time that she had dated her previous boyfriend. One of her boyfriends, I don't want to say his name and whatnot, but she was dating this one guy, and she noticed that when I was talking to her about the relationship experience that I had, that it sounded very similar to what she experienced with her previous boyfriend. She asked me simple questions like, why did you fall in love with this girl? Why did you start liking this girl? What is it that makes you want to stick with her? And she just started asking me a whole bunch of questions. As she kept asking me these questions, I noticed that it was getting increasingly more and more difficult to answer the questions. Then she started asking me very specific questions that really started to surprise me. She asked me, what did it feel like at the start of the relationship? And then I was able to explain that to her. And then she asked me, what did it feel like later on in the relationship? And I tried to explain to her what it felt like and what was so confusing and why I wasn't really as happy as I should have been in that relationship. And through that experience of talking to Veronica, she was able to say, Chris, it sounds like you dated someone similar to who I dated, and that was a covert, passive-aggressive narcissist. So she pointed me in the direction of this book, which I took the time to read. It was called The Covert, Passive-Aggressive Narcissist. And I picked up this book kind of skeptical, because I always like to be a self-reflective person where I look at my mistakes, what I did wrong, what I did right, to see what I could be changing or what I could be doing to live my best life. In fact, if you go watch one of the videos that I made on taking absolute responsibility for everything, you'll know exactly what I mean. It's the video that I made about why I believe that LeBron is better than Michael Jordan, and it came down to responsibility. And regardless of the NBA topic, it was interesting to go through this book because it talked about 3 distinct phases of going through a relationship with a covert, passive, aggressive narcissist. And the first stage of this kind of relationship is called the love bombing stage. In this stage, you are just flooded with love. You think that this person is going to be your perfect person because the covert passive aggressive narcissist, they know that they must hide themselves so that you are willing to put your full effort into them and they can feed off of your energy. These people are also commonly known as energy vampires. If you've ever heard that term used before, I used to think it was just like a made up term that, like superstitious people use. It's really not. There's people that literally suck the life out of you just by talking to them. And so this love bombing stage continues where you end up seriously just believing that this person is absolutely perfect because this person is kind of like a chameleon. They're going to change themselves and they're going to change whatever needs to be changed about the way that they need to be perceived from you in order for you to love them, in order for you to think that they are the perfect person. And in order for you to just go all in on them and think that like, man, like you finally found like your person, right? And going forward from that stage, once you get through the love bombing stage, and these stages don't necessarily have to happen in order, but they can be mixed in depending on how intelligent the covert passive aggressive narcissist is. The next stage is the devaluing stage. This stage is really interesting because this stage is all about control. At this point, the passive aggressive narcissist just wants control over you, and if they can control you, that is where they get their satisfaction from. Why? I don't know. That's just, I wish I could understand, but I truly don't understand. So these people, they will try to control you, and they will control you by lowering your self-esteem, and they want you to trust them more than you trust yourself. And if they can lower your self-esteem enough by making you feel shame about who you are as a person, then you will trust them more than you trust yourself. And if you trust them more than you trust yourself, then they have total control over you and they can do whatever they want with you, regardless of whatever you think is best for your life, because you are going to believe them no matter what. And see, here's where it gets really interesting, because then if they start showing negative behaviors and doing bad stuff and negative things, they always have a plausible reason for deniability. That is their greatest tool. The greatest tool that the covert passive aggressive narcissist has is that they can always deny something and there's a plausible reason for it. And just because it makes a little bit of sense, you start accepting that truth. And once you accept that truth once, even though it's a lie, then you'll accept it the next time. And if you get in the habit of accepting these things that this other person has put upon you, even though you know it doesn't truly make sense, then you will start to believe them more. And even though you're doubting yourself on the inside and you don't know if you want to trust them because you are a kind and loving person, you are falling into their trap. And as you fall further and further into their trap, it's harder to get yourself out, kind of like a spider web. The further you go in, the more entangled you get, the harder it is to get out. There were multiple times in my relationship where I caught my partner lying, where I caught her deceiving me, where I caught her telling me one thing that she thought I wanted to hear a month or two in the past, and then a month or two in the future she would tell me the actual truth, and I would say, why did you lie to me about that? That doesn't even make sense to me. I said, why would you change yourself? And at one point she did tell me, she's like, I just said that because that's what I thought you wanted to hear. I don't care about that. When I'm with someone, I want to see who they actually are at their core. And so for those of you going through a similar relationship situation where you're kind of finding out that this person is a chameleon and they're adjusting themselves to try to make you happy. You have to be very careful, because to this day, I don't know the truth about who she was, and I dated her for like a year and a half, and I still don't know who she was at her core, besides a covert narcissist that just kept changing based off whatever she thought I wanted. And that's a very dangerous relationship situation to be in, because then the only way that this person can get their own happiness is by controlling you. And if the more they can attack you and make you feel worse about yourself, the more control they will get. That is why they use shame as their primary tactic. Guilt is different than shame. Guilt is when you feel bad about something you've done. And guilt is a very real emotion, but shame is different. Shame is feeling bad about who you are as a person. See, here we have an external reality where you're feeling guilty about something that happened on the outside, and shame is feeling bad about what's going on the inside. And shame is very dangerous for your internal psyche. So you have to realize that these people, and they're going to attack you in shame, using shame in very covert ways, in ways that you wouldn't even know. That one of the most common ones that I kept hearing over and over in my relationship was, oh, I didn't know you were like that. I didn't know that you were this kind of person. And oh, I'm just not that kind of person. I'm more mature than that. I'm more above that. And it kept feeling like a virtue signal where this person kept putting themselves on a pedestal, like if they were above me, looking down on me. And it was very subtle in the ways that they would degrade you and put me down. And it would be simple things as maybe inviting me out to go meet with her and a bunch of her friends, and then she would take away the invitation last minute, tell me I couldn't come because of some external reason that happened, that all of a sudden I couldn't come. But it kept happening over and over and over, to the point where all these subtle signals that you're getting from that person are just subtly devaluing you and putting your confidence and your self-esteem down. And as long as your self-esteem stays low, they can control you. The moment that your self-esteem continues to rise and they cannot control you, then that's when they freak out, and that's when they're going to try to control you even more. That's when they're going to try to make you feel even worse about yourself. As bad about yourself as you can feel is where they are going to put you, because that is where they have the most control over you. The next and final stage is the discard phase. During the discard phase, this person will move on to their next victim, usually as soon as possible, if they were not already talking to another victim. And they will make their lives seem as awesome as possible without you. They will act like they're being the happiest person in the world, even though their internal reality is suffering on the inside, and they will seem so happy. And this type of person is really not happy on the inside, but they're making it seem like they're so happy just to try to get to you, just to try to ruin your self-esteem, just to try to make you feel worse. Like if you were such a bad person that you made this person suffer. And that is the final discard phase. And the covert passive-aggressive narcissist can shift between these stages. This person might be breaking up with you, but never actually break up with you. In fact, most covert narcissists are the ones that say they want to get divorced to you, but they will never file for divorce because they want you to do it. They want you to cut off all the ties, because this person only cares about their status and how they look to other people. And as long as they look good to other people, then they have nothing to worry about, which is a very big problem for you. These people will suck the life out of you, because that is how they get their own happiness, by sucking the life out of you. It is because their internal world is crumbling down and they want to take you down with them. So if there's anything inside of you that feels like you might be dating an energy vampire, a covert passive-aggressive narcissist, where you feel like every time you're talking to this person, sometimes they maybe love bomb you, make you feel amazing, and you keep trying to go back to how the relationship started when it was awesome, and now you're just in a situation where the relationship is shitty and isn't good for you and it sucks, and you keep trying to go back and they keep love bombing you but also devaluing you at the same time, I encourage you to take some time to read the same book that I read, The Covert Passive-Aggressive Narcissist. Keep going through other books, and be aware that there are people in the world that will literally suck the life out of you and want to ruin your self-esteem for who knows what reason. You know, it could be their way they grew up, you know, mom, dad issues, whatnot. I don't know. The truth is that they exist and you have to protect yourselves from them, or else you are going to suffer on the inside. In fact, it's not uncommon for victims of covert passive aggressive narcissists to have thoughts questioning whether or not they have the will to live. Because if you're, all of life is relationships, and if you're really struggling with a certain relationship, it makes you start to be that way in everything. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you're questioning this relationship and you're always in and out, you start questioning every relationship and you're always in and out. And I'm going to be totally honest with you, for a moment I would occasionally have really dark thoughts about maybe not being here anymore, which sounds crazy. And I personally, like, I would never do it, but like the fact that I had those thoughts is the thing that made me question why I was in that relationship, because I know I would never have those kinds of thoughts if I had not been in that relationship, because that is not true to my core. My core is very happy, it's very awesome, and it's very love-giving and life living. I love living life, and that's where my core is always at. And this relationship put me in a really dark spot, and it was because of this book that I was able to recognize that this is a very common symptom of dating this kind of person. So if you've even had those crazy dark thoughts, then, you know, make sure you talk to somebody about it, pick up these books and really study it. Now, the very last thing is, as I was reading this book, I will not say I am completely out of the woods, because I did notice myself falling into some of the behaviors myself, which is not good. And that is something that I must fix about myself. Now, in this book, it's now you're talking about abuse here, and the emotional, the narcissist emotionally abuses you, and it's terrible, and it should not be any part of your life, and all abuse is horrible. And I do think it is important for people to realize that predator and prey are of the same vibration. They're coming together. It takes two to tango. And I had to take responsibility for the things that I did wrong in the relationship that enabled that behavior towards myself. I had to take responsibility for the fact that I allowed someone to treat me like that, and I had never allowed anybody else to treat me like that. And I had to really take some time to reflect upon myself of what I needed to do different to treat myself the best that I can in life. And I encourage you to take responsibility for the things that you can, but recognize that not everything is your fault. And sometimes there's just some people in the world that are very mean, that are very evil, and I still look at them with sympathy, because they probably don't even know why. And at everybody's core, everybody has a positive intention for something. Everybody, in my opinion, everybody at their core is a good person. It can just come off in bad ways, and they do bad behaviors and bad actions because they don't know how to deal with it. So that person that's crumbling on the inside, I still have sympathy for them, and my heart goes out to her and every other covert passive aggressive narcissist. But that does not mean that you need to fix their problems or live or be taken down with them. And you do not need to be taken down with them and have them ruin your self-esteem just because their self-esteem is ruined. Now, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a lot from my experience. And if you feel like you're in a similar situation, please go out, do your own research and study up. And I hope that this has a positive effect on your life. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button below. As soon as we hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel, I'm going to give away $1,000 to one of you who was within the first 1,000 subscribers on this channel. Also, make sure you go get your free Legend wristband. I'll put the link in the description down below. Just help me out with shipping. I'll send that out to you, and I'll see you guys on the next one.